Hi everyone, thanks for tuning back in. So I'm going to tell you another dry fly pattern today. This is a pattern that was actually shown to me a couple of years ago now by a chap called Sean Thomas. Great fly tyer, great all-round chap. I was actually saw this at an event we were tying at for the Peacock Fly Fishing Club. And as soon as I saw the pattern, I thought I've got to get some of these in my box. So since then, it's been pretty much my go-to large dark olive pattern. I've got a 16 in the vise today, but I'm actually going to tie it in a 14 because I'm stocking some of my boxes up. So without further ado, let's jump into it. Right, so in the vise, I've got size 14 SLD2 from Partridge. This is a standard dry fly hook. And the first thing I'm going to come in with is some Seer 14-0 in brown. I've pre-waxed my thread. And I'm going to start this a couple of eye lengths behind the eye. And I'm going to tie down probably to about halfway. I'm going to cut out my butt ends. I'm going to counter spin my thread. And then I'm going to come back up to my tying point. I'm going to apply some more wax. And then the first thing I'm going to come in with is some CDC. So it'll all depend how good your CDC is, to how many feathers you would need. But as a general rule of thumb, I tend to find on 14s I'm probably going to want 4 feathers. On a 16s, probably 3. And I'm going to stack these on top of each other. So I'm just going to stack those all on top in my hand. Make sure all the tips are nicely lined up. So worth taking your time, make sure they're all spot on so it makes a neater fly. So then when they're all stacked, I'm just going to preen all the fibres forward. I'm going to put it in my left hand and I'm going to measure it to about the size of the hook. So I'm going to counter spin my thread just to help the next tie-in be a little bit easier. And I'm going to do a pinch wrap. And then I'm going to do 2 or 3 tight wraps back. So at this point, I'm just going to check that I've got enough space in front for my hackle, which I have. And I'm going to pull my butts up and I'm going to cut these at a slight taper. And then I'm going to really lock those down with my tying thread. Like so. Right. So the next material we're going to come in with is some coq de leon. So this is a coq de leon Medio. So I'm going to pull my fibres 90 degrees from my stem. So you're probably going to want 5 or 6. You don't want too many. I'm going to pull them away just to line them all up. And then pull them from the stem. So I want these about a hook length in length. I'm going to tie them on right on top of the shank. I'm going to just check my length. A little bit long there. So I'm just going to shorten those a little. Check them again. Yeah, happy with that. I'm going to tie those all the way down to the bend. As you see, I've got quite a flat thread there. So when I get to this point, I'm going to clockwise spin my thread to cut it up. And then I'm going to lift my tail up and I'm going to come under with my thread and pull that to the eye, and that just helps splay those fibres. So because I've wet them, they're sticking together a little bit. And then I turn on top to lock that off, and then I'm going to counter spin my thread again. So I'm going to tie this back up to just where we cut that taper for the CDC, and I'm going to cut these butt ends out. So next thing I'm going to get is some Seer 14-0 again, and this is in light Hackle or Primrose. I'm going to double a piece of this up, and that's going to act as our rib. And then the loop, I'm just going to cut the loop like so. I'm going to pull it under my tying thread and onto my side of the shank, grab my tying thread and pull it tight, and I'm just going to pull that down. And then we're going to tie that down to the tail. I'm going to always make sure that my tying thread is nice and flat, just to help create a nice body. So now it's just a case of building our taper. So we've got a nice profile for the fly. And it doesn't take too long to do this if you've not cut your CDC too far down the shank. So just level this bit up a little bit. So happy with that now. And then back up to behind the CDC. And then I'm going to take a hackle plier. I'm going to grab my rib, pinch it between that. And I'm going to clockwise spin this to cord the two fibres together. And then I'm going to counter rib this down. So just open turns, open even turns. And come up the fly to behind that CDC. So nice even turns. And then that should do us there. So I'm going to tie this off. And then we can cut our butt section away of that. So the last thing we're going to do is take a hackle. So this is a silver badger. So I'm going to strip the fibres off the base, and then I'm going to pull some on the far side or the near side to the camera, so that you've got one bare part of the stem, and that just helps as you turn your hackle in. So I'm going to put a bit more tying wax on, just to help really bind this down. I'm going to counter spin my thread. I'm going to just nip that in, and I'm going to figure of 8 this in, so I just need to counter spin that a bit more. I'm going to come under, and I'm going to figure of 8 that now. So what that'll do is you'll see that the feather is now standing perpendicular from the fly. So now we can pull our fibres back, and we can tie that butt end in of the stem in front of that CDC. So it's just a case now of just building a thread down to proper CDC up. And once that's done, I'm just going to create an even sort of base of thread for our hackle to sit on. So, see, I've caught a few of those fibres. So what I'm going to do is just to make, if I need to fly, I'm just going to trim those out with my scissors, get rid of them, like so. So what I do here is I tend to do 2 wraps behind and 2 wraps in front of the CDC. So I'm grabbing it with a hackle plier, and I'm going to do 1 full turn and 2, and then I'm going to grab my CDC, I'm going to sweep that back, and I'm going to do a turn right tight into that base to help prop that CDC up. So that's 1, and then another 1, and then I'm going to then catch this feather off, and as I catch it, I'm going to pull it in front of the eye just to pull all those fibres away, and then we can do a couple of turns behind and then sweep it backwards and a couple of turns in front. And then I'm going to put some wax on. I very rarely tend to use varnish when I'm tying my dries. I always just do the heads with some tying wax. So I'm just going to now create a nice head as I'm whip finishing. So that's 1. And I always do a double whip finish just for extra security, and that's 2. So then what I can do is I can trim my butt end out. I'm going to sweep all these hackle fibres forward. So you can see there we're pretty much done. The only other thing left to do, which I always do, so you have to forgive me because my fly's going to now go upside down, is I'm going to, quite happy with that head there, just cut them off, yeah. So now I'm just going to trim the base of these, just so it sits lower in the water, so I can sweep them down, just any stragglers, I can make sure. So yeah, so that's the finished fly. So if you're not quite happy and you've got some that are just, you can always get a little bit tighter with your scissors, just to really neaten that bottom up. So yeah, so that's happy with that. So that's the finished fly. So as I say, it's been a great pattern for me since I learnt it from Sean. It's definitely one you want to get in your boxes for those large dark catches, which will soon be upon us. So thanks everyone for tuning in again. You know, if you like what you've seen, please do like, share and subscribe. And I'll see you on the next video. Take care, guys. All the best.